We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast here on the We Made This podcast network. My name's Mark Adams. I am your host, and with me at this time is my constant, almost co-host. Hello, Kurt North.
Hello, almost person here. How are we doing?
Well, you miss the ones that you don't want to do when we do specials, don't you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The ones where I'm too highbrow for that, sir. I'm too highbrow.
Yeah, the ones where you're washing your hair.
Yeah, exactly. And you've seen how much hair I've got to wash.
Yeah, me too. Also with us, we've got Colin. He's got no hair either.
This is unusual because this is actually one
Hello,
out
Colin.
of the three of us, I've got the most hair, which that doesn't normally happen when I'm doing podcasts. Hello.
And this week we are doing season 3, episode 4. That is Bodyswap. Let's get on with it. Normal theme, nothing different there. And then we are followed by the scutters in the corridor with a handful of wires. I do love the scutters.
And I like this bit at the start with the scutters. I like the premise that a scutter has gone haywire, as they tended to do in real life, and has rewired the entire ship.
They've got to have done it. They've been completely self-aware at that point. You know, it's a fact that, well, you know, these scutters have been an absolute arse to us over the past couple of seasons. Let's write a beginning where they're just doing what they naturally do.
Yeah.
It does feel like a bit of an in-joke, doesn't it?
I think that was definitely where they were going with that one.
So we're then in the control room, and Rimmer and Crichton. Rimmer is instructing Crichton because the scutter has gone crazy and rewired everything. Lister comes in and wants to play poker. Rimmer tells Lister not to tell the cat to touch anything, as they've no idea where the self-destruct is.
And would you not be the person to like go and order yourself like a milkshake and a toffee crisp?
I'd go for the crispy bar. I'd probably choose a water rather than a milkshake. But yeah, it'd be me, particularly if I went past.
It would
a
definitely
vending
be
machine.
me.
Yeah,
It would be something
don't touch
involving
anything.
cheese.
Yeah. Don't touch anything electrical. Okay, I'll just go to a dispenser, which is electrical.
Yeah.
And that's the question.
So what we're saying is, if the crew was us three, we'd be really fucked.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have lasted 3 series so far, I don't think.
So they're in the corridors. Lister is telling the cats, and then, as we said, he orders a milkshake, which sets off the self-destruct. We're back in the control room, and
just before we do that, though, what I particularly like, because I can imagine me doing this as well, is when things go wrong and you keep doing the same thing. So you keep like, and you went, cancel. It says, you have 10 minutes left. Blah, blah. Cancel. You have 9 minutes left. Cancel. You have 8 minutes left. You're like, stop hitting cancel.
Yeah. That's what I was doing when I was trying to get my mic to work earlier and it was playing up. I was just doing the same thing over and over again.
Which I think is a very true to life thing, isn't it? It doesn't matter. It technically, you know, it's like the whole IT crowd thing of like you turn it off and turn it on again. But the fact that if something's going wrong and you just start hitting the thing, it's not going to make any difference. But you still continue to hit it, don't you?
It sometimes makes you feel better, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone is fundamentally impatient, and I know damn well if my computer screen freezes, the first thing I will do is click on fucking everything, even though I know that makes it worse. I know that it makes it worse. I know that it will make it take longer to sort its shit out, but I do it every time.
Fair.
Is there anyone who doesn't do that, though, because they have more willpower than me?
Androids. They're
They
not
have
human.
feelings too.
This is true. Absolutely. Thank you, Kylie Gwenlyn.
They're in the control room with 8 minutes left, and only the captain or senior officers can do an override. Crichton suggests a mind swap.
Yes.
Ooh.
On the Nova 5, which was nice to have that back. And
Yes.
not only
It's a
that,
reference.
yeah, and not only that, the fact that when asked if it didn't work, I was like, well, no.
Not entirely.
Yeah.
And the idea is that Crichton will use the mind swap to put the captain's mind into Lister's head.
Yes.
But only Brown is available as the captain's hollow disc is lost. Lister is like saying, no. And Cat appeals on behalf of his suits.
Yes. Well, Lister's not too happy because they've got to take his mind out and copy it onto a little dictaphone cassette.
Oh, that dictaphone cassette, mate. You say things don't age well. And normally it's gags about pop stars. But a dictaphone tape.
I think they refer to it as a disc as well.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
They must have had, like, floppy disks at that point, surely.
Yeah, floppy disks were around well before that. But I think floppy disk may have dated it even more than the tape.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
At least tapes are retro and in occasionally.
I've got one over there.
Have you got a mini disc as well?
No, I got one or two mini discs upstairs, actually. Yeah, we were talking about that last series about mini discs and stuff.
We just keep repeating the same conversation every season.
It
Colin.
was
So Queen
almost
shows
like
up.
I made a reference. I'm not going to say Towling Road. Don't say Towling Road. But I said Towling Road.
Having said that, though, because we did talk about it with the when the tape got screwed up last season. Because the tape got screwed up last season, it was a CD, and then this one is not a tape, but it is a tape.
Yeah,
so I'm not quite sure which way around they want to do it.
Perhaps Rob just doesn't know anything about formats.
Well, we've also seen the triangular videotapes that are video games as well. So, you know, I mean, whatever.
I like it.
Maybe this is the future. All the formats are fucked.
Well, you know, vinyl's back, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's
nothing's compatible with anything.
No.
You've got an innie and you want an outie. Wait, what? Moving on. Rimmer basically convinces him with 30 seconds to go, saying, look, if it don't work, you've only got 30 seconds to live anyway. Yeah. And the cat drops Lister's mind in the mug, which made me laugh.
Oh, it's such a good gag, that. It's such a good gag. Because one, they talk about the fact that his brain is all in that. So the fact that they're making a joke that it's so small it can fit on that disc.
Yeah, I think it was a reference to everyone else's mind would have been on a cassette tape rather than a dictaphone tape.
Yeah. But then obviously, as you say, just the dropping in the coffee, and it's just Cat's reaction's brilliant. Like, it really is.
Another nice facial expression, isn't it? His reaction there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, speaking of facial reactions, Lister's eyes are just an amazing.
That's great. Where just one of his eyes goes cross-eyed.
Yeah.
And
it's horrible.
He does that a few times in the series, like, so it's.
Well, it's just something that Craig Charles can do.
Clearly,
so they were like, we may as well use that.
So they do the mind swap, and they do the mind swap. So they do the mind swap. I can't think of a way to phrase it other than that. Shit.
They do the mind swap.
They implement the mind swap. There we go.
Yeah.
And Brown was a woman. And despite the fact Lister's vocal cords haven't changed, he sounds like a woman.
Yes. Which is a theme on this episode. Played by Leah Williams, who is a very well-respected actress. Wasn't very well known at this point, but the thing I've seen her in recently is there was a really good series called The Capture that she was in recently. She was the sort of MI5 boss lady kind of thing in that.
Oh, that's the one where the kind of the CCTV thing.
Or the fake CCTV footage. Yeah. which is fucking brilliant. It's definitely worth watching. Not as funny as Red Dwarf, though.
But the Lister's miming made me laugh. It just looked so ridiculous, and he'd overemphasized his pronunciation. It was just great and completely unnecessary, which made it really funny.
Well, what they talk about this again on the quarantine. It's good that we decided to do a Red Dwarf podcast around the same time they decide to talk about it in quarantine.
It's very helpful, isn't it?
It is very helpful, yeah.
I've not been watching them because I know you two will.
Yeah.
They're worth what they're entertaining.
Yeah, they're
in their own right.
Yeah, but what they basically say, and I get this actually. There was talking about the dubbing, because we touched upon it last week about the fact that this was filmed all pre-done, all pre-filmed. Then they showed the full episode to the audience rather than have them in the show. So it's got a ever so slightly different take, and I do feel like they were saying, I do feel it actually drops in quality a little bit because of that, because it's got all the additional like dialogue in there, and it doesn't really work, and some of the jokes don't land properly. This
is my least favourite Red Dwarf episode that we've seen so far. Definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I struggle with it. And this is before listening to that thing as well. Like I couldn't really put my mind on it. And it is that. I think it's the missing the live aspect.
Well, there's that, and there's also another aspect that's particularly significant that we'll get into in a bit because it's not happened yet. But one of the things that I don't like about this episode is it's like it was two shorter stories crudely gaffer taped together. You got like the first 10 minutes, which is the bit with the ship with the sort of race against time to sort out the that stop the ship from exploding, and then you've got the body swap section as the second half, sort of 20 minutes of that bit, and I prefer the first 10 minutes, and I'd much rather that they'd extended that out into a full 30-minute episode.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and there's suspension. I mean, we talked about it a little bit as well, but there's the suspension of disbelief as well that I can't. When you see them talking with the additional dialogue, it doesn't really kind of land for me. It's kind of like, I know they're doing that in a vocal booth, but the one thing they did say in the actual quarantine was that it was easier for Craig to record his lines because Chris Barry's performance and the way he pronounces vowels and stuff like that was actually already an impression of Craig Chris Barry being Craig Charles. But Chris Barry struggled with Craig Charles's lines because it wasn't forming the vowels properly to line up.
Which does kind of make sense in as much as Chris Barry had probably read the first audiobook by this time, hadn't he?
Yeah. They essentially, if Craig Charles was as skilled an impressionist as Chris Barry is, they could have just done it with both of them doing each other's voices, and it would have worked a lot better. But it's not really fair on Craig Charles to do that because that's not his thing. Whereas Chris Barry was an impressionist before he was even an actor. That's he started out his major break was Spitting Image, wasn't it? So
I mean, but as I say, what was particularly because you'd think, Chris Barry would have the easier run. Because I would have thought that before watching that quarantine episode, but it wasn't. It was Chris Barry was really struggling trying to line up his impression with Craig Charles.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
The abort fails, by the way, but it doesn't matter because it was only the warning system, and Holly had got rid of the bomb ages ago.
And that is my quotable line of the week.
I don't think that there's a quote. I'm checking my notes. I don't think there's a quotable dwarf for the first time ever.
Not even Jesus.
Oh.
No.
This episode is so bad that I don't, for the first time ever, we're what? 12, 18 episodes in. This is the first one that doesn't have a quotable dwarf. It is sad.
I feel better, though, because I thought I totally expected to be going into this being all negative and you two being like, no, it's really good.
I don't hate it. It just doesn't have a quotable dwarf.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the Holly line is probably the most, because it's almost it's nowhere near this, but it's almost Queeg-esque in the fact that she's let the whole thing go, and it's just like, well, we don't have a bomb on board. It's it's like, oh right, why didn't you tell him?
Got rid of it ages ago.
You didn't ask. You didn't ask.
It did feel like a very similar gag, yeah.
I was just going to say, which I think if they'd have expanded that, I think it would have been a really good ending. But I can see from what you're saying there, actually, it might be seen as being a bit too close to Queeg. Although I don't think that Holly, I've never taken it as Holly just knew and just wasn't telling them. I don't think it had occurred to Holly to think, they're all going to get blown up. Oh, no, they're not, because I haven't done it. I could just tell them that. I don't think that would have occurred to her at all.
Oh no, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. It's a different take on it, because it's not Holly playing them. It's just the fact that she's like, we didn't ask. Yeah. So it's like, oh, right, okay, Holly, think about it. Which does work, but it's as I say, it's probably the highlight of the episode for me personally.
So they're in the sleeping quarters and they have the can't sleep chat. Rimmer is concerned about Lister's health, apparently, and says that he's fat and he's too old to eat what he likes. Lister says that he'll work out. Yeah. And Rimmer suggests a swap so he can look after his body and get fit for him. So basically, I'll scratch your back and you'll scratch mine. At no point would I ever have agreed to have some motherfucker have my body. I'd stay fat.
Yeah.
It's a very loose thread, isn't it?
And Rob Grant was talking about how the concept of this episode came from when him and people he knew used to borrow like their mates' cars and that kind of thing, and they'd be driving it and there'd be sort of faults with the car that you've got used to driving it all the time, but then when you lend it to someone else, they realise that you have to steer it to the right slightly to go around the corner and that sort of thing. And they thought, what if you did that, but it was with a body rather than a car?
But it's an interesting concept, though, because
it is.
I mean, what would people be surprised, say, if somebody was to take over your body? Where would people go? Bloody hell, I don't realise that. Like for me, it's my knee. I can't kneel on my knee, but I wouldn't necessarily tell people that. But if somebody did inhabit my body and then go that and basically crack the knee open, because they'll try and just go fall flat on the face because I haven't told them, or someone's a heavy smoker or whatever. It'd be really interesting to actually be in somebody else's shoes for that. I mean, I know it's a well trodden, see someone else's shoes.
With that,
trope, but I've not thought about it in the way that Bodyswap deals with it. In that, you would jump into somebody's body who might have had a condition or might have had something else, and it would be really interesting to spend half an hour in somebody else's body to feel something different.
At our age, we've all got our little aches and pains, so maybe if we did a body swap with someone else, you get like different aches and pains, and I don't want that. I don't want any aches and pains.
My aches and pains, the mine.
Well, you can kind of tune them out a bit when they're yours, can't you? You're used to it, and you're like,
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. All three of us have probably got tinnitus.
Oh, I definitely have, mate.
Yeah,
I used to play in a band called Lando Calrissian years ago, where we used to write songs by going into a rehearsal room, turning everything up way louder than it should have been, and basically overloading our ears so that we were then picking out harmonics and melodies and stuff like that your ear was sort of picking out for you. Right. We won the Tamworth Battle of the Bands in 2004 with that, but my ears have never ever recovered. So yeah,
but that's a perfect example, though, isn't it? Because if Mark was to jump into one of our bodies, and we've both got tinnitus.
It's like, what the fuck is that noise?
I don't hear it. I don't hear it unless I'm literally pitch black, really dark, no music on whatsoever. I never pay any attention to it. But somebody you would be like, "What on earth is that?" You know what I mean? So
your tinnitus is a different pitch to mine. What's going on?
Here's one for you. Are either of you right-handed?
Yes.
I'm left.
Right. So, for example, if Kurt or I swapped bodies with you, Colin, how would that work? If you jumped into my body, would my left-handed body become right-handed? Or because my right brain is the more dominant, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think we need a neurologist to ask for that to get a definitive answer, and it would probably come down to how the body swap works, whether it is your entire consciousness in your brain, including all your motor functions as well, that is transferred, or whether it's just your thinking part of the brain.
So, with my track record, have you worked out where I'm going with this?
I have now. Yeah.
Have now.
Would it feel different if you had a wank?
Probably.
But the thing is, as well, it might be different. It might be different even with the left-hander and the left-hander, though.
True.
Different pace. It's different pace.
Yeah, and also, it's a different cock. I hadn't thought of that.
Speaking of that, Chris Barry looks down. Well, not Rimmer looks down, doesn't he? At some point.
Yes, he does.
I do. I just on my notes. I do actually like. I didn't think it was that funny, but I do like the analogy of the frog belly. I didn't actually quite like that.
Legs dangling down.
So they go through the mind swap, and when he goes to the toilet, he uses tongs to have a piss. That's the first thing I'd be touching, and he asks for new clothes. Lister in Rimmer. This is going to be really difficult to narrate. Lister in Rimmer's body. Exactly. This is going to be really difficult. So I'm going to say Lister in Rimmer's body asks for new clothes and gets like his usual clothes, but they're on Rimmer or on Rimmer's body. And I like this. I think it's fun to see them both dressed in their opposite clothes. It was so simple but funny.
I did see a YouTube video where somebody pointed out that Chris Barry in Lister's clothes looks exactly like Chris Lowe out of the Pet Shop Boys.
Wow.
With his cap.
Wow.
Speaking of horrific bands, Jesus.
Oh, don't be dissing the Pet Shop Boys. What's wrong with you?
Can't stand them. They're not my taste.
They're not you two.
They're not you two or Muse. So
I can go with Muse. Muse are all right. I saw them live and they were pretty cool. Anyway, music podcast is for like Colin and stuff. Rimmer in Lister's body showers with Ajax and uses an electric knife on his dreadlocks.
It's Ajax and Domestos.
Mr. Domestos. Sorry. Because Ajax wasn't enough.
Yeah. It says he's going to have to get the dirt under his fingernails carbon dated.
And he's really excited about touch, taste, and smell, things that he didn't have except for when he was smelling camphor wood.
Yeah, that's true.
2 episodes ago, don't forget.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good catch.
Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf.
Continuity is not necessarily a thing. Which is good after this episode, because we'll get onto that in a bit.
No such thing as canon. Let's just go with that. So he gorges, and Lister in Rimmer's body catches him, and he apologizes, and Lister in Rimmer's body tells him he's having his body back. I think it's at this point that it tells you how long they've been on Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Because it says 3 million and 2 years. So we now know that it's been 2 years in Red Dwarf time.
Yeah.
That seems about right. They seem to be, at least at this stage, aging the show with the amount of years the actors have been playing.
Yeah, which is sensible.
Well, I think because season 2 was 18 months, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, Kurt, you've seen the later ones. Are they now? The actors are all basically, some of them are knocking 60. Are they aging them, or are they still kind of only 5 or 6 years into Lister waking up from quarantine? Not from quarantine, from suspended animation.
the things that's happened at the end of season 8 are referenced a couple of times. So it is in continuity with season 8 and Back to Earth. So it's not trying to be something new. It's just kind of like continue on, I think.
But they don't like make jokes about how they've aged and how they've been in space for 30 years and stuff like that.
There's an actual episode where Crichton's having a midlife crisis.
Right.
Because he's like 3 million. I think he's something like 3 million years old or something, and obviously he's got a 6 million year lifespan or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they do touch upon their ages. Yeah, or at least
right. Cool. Cat comes in as Rimmer in Lister's body is in the corridors and asks him why he's dressed like Goalpost Head, and Rimmer pokes him in the eye.
That section, there is a significant bit in Cat's dialogue there. It's the only time, or at least the only time in the first run of series, where he refers to Rimmer by name. Because he says, why do you want to look like that smeghead Rimmer? That's the only time.
True.
It may be that he says that series 8 onwards, but up until all the ones I've seen, he never says Rimmer. It's always Goalpost Head.
I hadn't spotted that.
Yeah.
It's another one to look out for.
It's also the only known cat word in this episode, where he's talking about justice, which is in the cat dictionary, or it could be.
Or could it be a smell? You have to smell that to actually...
Yeah. So next scene is Rimmer in Lister's body is in a swimming pool or jacuzzi, and he's got a muscle mag and calls it training. And I don't know, these very short scenes, they don't feel like Red Dwarf.
That scene was initially a fair bit longer. So the jacuzzi scene originally had Crichton. I think Crichton's entirely cut out of that bit, because it was the first scene that they shot with Robert Llewellyn as Crichton. And he's speaking in an English accent.
And he's got a lighter in his finger.
And he's got a lighter in his finger, which kept electrocuting him. But yeah, they cut that whole bit. It's on YouTube, because it was on the extras on the Body Snatcher collection, I think.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So, yeah, it's worth watching to see what Crichton's original voice would have been, and to see this cool lighter thumb thing, which BB-8 then stole in Star Wars years later.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
What I'm getting at is, in general, these scenes tend to be longer in Red Dwarf. They tend to stay in a certain area, and they tend to be like 2 or 3 minutes minimum, whereas this is kind of quick fire. But from what you're saying is that it was never supposed to be quick fire. They just had to edit it because of Robert Llewellyn.
Yeah. Another reason for that could be, and I've only just thought of this now, it may possibly be because when they're filming in front of a studio audience, it's not worth them setting up a set for such a short period of time and then only using it for that little bit.
And it also goes back to that idea of like people holding on the joke when people are laughing as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if you're thinking like they're holding on the joke, they'll hold for that thing. And what they were saying, what Ed Bye was saying was that, they would anticipate how long that laugh would be. And if they've under anticipated it, the scenes are going to be shorter, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. True. Next scene is they're in the quarters, and it's Lister in Rimmer's body and the cat playing Scrabble, as you've touched on with. And Lister is basically learning what it's like to be a hologram. And I think that's worth looking at, because he's never really empathized with Rimmer as a hologram before. You know, like putting the cream cake on his head and drawing an H, taking the piss out of the fact that he's a hologram. Yeah, I like it. It just doesn't quite hit like other episodes of Red Dwarf, does it?
No. It's an interesting concept, badly executed, as I'm going to keep saying.
I hate this. We normally gush about Red Dwarf.
No. Perhaps we should have recorded these 2 episodes the other way around and been all happy about Polymorph second.
True. But yeah, Jazitska is the cat word for when you get your genitals trapped in a book. That's a very specific word.
Is it in the dictionary? Well, it could be.
I would love it if, I don't know, Icelandic or Guatemalan actually had a word that was the noise you make when you get your genitals caught in something. I would love it if that was in like the Norwegian dictionary or something like that. That would be brilliant. That would please me. Should have looked it up. Didn't think about it till about 3 seconds ago.
Just no preparation. It's just shocking.
I know. What's happened to us?
So Rimmer in Lister's body comes in and claims he's done a workout. Lister in Rimmer's body demands a weigh-in.
What's he wearing?
And he's put on 2 stone.
What's he wearing, though?
Well, we haven't got there yet.
No, because he says he hasn't put on 2 stone, but what's he actually?
He's wearing a toweling robe.
He's wearing a toweling robe.
Yeah.
And underneath the toweling robe, he's wearing a girdle.
Which is apparently a obscure William Shatner reference, because they were saying in the quarantine commentary that William Shatner is rumoured to have, when filming a series of Star Trek, he used to just spend all of his time in between takes at the buffet on set, just eating absolutely everything, and he'd put on about 2 stone by the end of the series. So at the end of the really long American seasons where they do, 22 episodes, he would have to be wearing a girdle so that it'd still fit in his costume.
Someone who doesn't like Star Trek, Colin, you do mention it a lot.
I mentioned Shatner. Shatner's cool. Mainly for
Shatner is cool. And funnily enough, Lister is not pleased and demands his body back, but he gives him one last chance. It doesn't... I know we're watching a sitcom for the lols with a little bit of sci-fi in it, but...
Yeah.
The concept is, again, it's like he's saying that concept is it's just badly done, because even like an older version of Red Dwarf could have done this slightly differently. That this whole idea of it could be a yearly thing, that it's Rimmer's yearning to have a body. You know what I mean? It's like there's something there. There's something there to use, but this concept of like swapping bodies and them talking through the vocal cords and whatever just doesn't seem to work.
No.
There's elements later on in this episode, actually thinking about it, that I quite like. I do like the as we're getting towards it now, the slow build up of like the manicness of Rimmer in Lister's body. I do like that idea, and I think it gets better from here on in. But at this point, it's still a bit like, oh right, it's just, it could be a yearly thing, and there's not enough gravitas behind that thought and that process to really kind of grab you.
I think what it is for me is it just seems like it's the first time Red Dwarf has had padding. They could have so quickly got to Rimmer ate lots of cake, so Lister asked for his body back. But they do it 3 times before it actually happens. And that's literally the first time we see padding in Red Dwarf. It really does feel like that. You know, this isn't a Netflix Marvel series, for fuck's sake.
The whole Rimmer going completely off the rails and psychopathic is the bit I really, really, really don't like in this episode, because it seems so out of character. He's as evil in this episode as he is when he contracts the holovirus later on. Like the only difference is he's not got a gingham dress and Mr. Flibble this time. And, you know...
I don't know. I kind of like the idea that when you get exactly what you want, you go crazy. I think I probably would, to be honest with you.
I think I hold Rimmer up to a slightly higher standard than that, you know.
Rimmer?
Which I've never said before.
I don't know.
The whole thing is that it's the conflict between the fact that they do deep down get on, even though they don't get on. It's the juxtaposition between them just doing each other's head in, but still they're like a family. And if a member of your family threatened to kill you while stealing your body, you're probably not going to come back from that. And
I agree.
This is why we would, like, when we were talking about how there's no such thing as canon in Red Dwarf, there can't be. But this is so, for me, this episode's so jarringly different that it seems like, the DC Comics Elseworlds ones,
Right.
where they do a, like Superman Red Sun, where it's completely different canon. Where
Superman was Russian.
Exactly. He landed in Russia rather than in America, and history entirely changed as a result. I see this episode as being one of them. Like, what if Rimmer was, instead of just a bit of a bellend, he was actually a total cunt?
Subtle.
I do think the threatening to kill himself is a bit too much. Definitely.
Yeah. I did like the use of Chekhov's gun, though, because earlier on in the episode, that gun is behind him on his... hanging up right in his bunk, and it's just it's the exact rule of, if you see a gun, it will be used later on in the show, and it is.
No, I suppose there is that. It's a good. I can see where you come from, because the gag at the end with the arm is something that probably like Lister would do.
Yeah,
not Rimmer. You know what I mean? So
it is pretty funny though.
It is funny.
That bit I don't mind.
Yeah. That bit I actually do quite like, and I do like the frivolity of the way that Rimmer's like talking. He's like, I think you're not going to like it. You're going to go spare. It's stuff like that. It's like it's more jovial, but at that point when you're talking about the gun bit, it's
dark.
Yeah. But I think, Lister has been abominable to Rimmer in the past. Remember that he burnt his camphorwood thing. So
that's not the same. He was going to burn his guitar. Guitars are more important.
Fine.
Sorry, anyway, there, aren't I?
Clearly. Lister's asleep and finds that Rimmer is gorging in his body, and finally he demands his body back after he discovers his dreadlocks in the bin. So they do the swap in the middle of the night, despite Crichton being on downtime. Lister is still annoyed and Rimmer is gutted after the mind swap, and Rimmer points out that he smoked a fuck ton of cigars, given him tits, and not treated his athlete's foot. And out of all of those things, I would be most pissed off about not treating my athlete's foot.
Yeah.
Because if you've specifically said, treat my athlete's foot, and he hasn't done it, that's really disrespectful. If he hasn't explicitly said the other two things, then it's less disrespectful.
You see, they could have turned that around, couldn't they? They could have gone, well, look, I treated your athlete's foot, for God's sake. You know what I mean? They could have used that. Yeah. That could have been like a redeeming feature that, he was trying to look after his body, but they don't. They go down the route of, you haven't touched it.
And, Lister says, you never have in my body. You can't borrow it, ever. And then, very quickly, Rimmer forces Crichton to do a swap back, and Lister wakes up as Rimmer. Rimmer, in his body, has left him a video message and done a runner. I love how you two are being, like, super virtuous. I would do exactly what Rimmer fucking did. Without a shadow of a doubt, if I had no body and I could steal someone else's body, I would totally steal their body. I like having a body.
Maybe, yeah, but maybe someone that I don't like.
Well, the cats.
he is a bit spoiled.
Fair, out of the two, the cat's body.
Yeah. You're going to go for the one that's, more fit, aren't you? If it's that kind of choice. Yeah,
he's already wrecked Lister's thinking about it.
Yeah, the cat is obviously better looked after. Because he has to fit in all of those suits.
So Lister asks the cat if he can borrow his body, and the cat, funnily enough, refuses to let a garbage truck driver use his Rolls Royce. And at this point, I was like, garbage?
Yeah, it's American, isn't it?
Why? Why
the cat has an American accent.
Yeah, it's in the script.
Yeah.
Oh.
The cat has an American accent, and so does Crichton, although it's a bit Canadian, apparently. So that's like 50% of the crew are. What I mean, the official language on Red Dwarf was Esperanto, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All the signs are in Esperanto.
Yes.
So it depends what. I used to know how to say, "Can you send up the hall porter? There appears to be a frog in my bidet," but I can't remember it anymore.
I mean, of all the phrases you need, one or fancy a fuck. At the end of the day, I know which one I'd prefer to use.
Fair. I think that probably inspired the few phrases that I can say in French and German, which is in German, it's "Mein Kaninchen ist Flammen," which means my rabbit is on fire. And French is "Je suis le mouton de la guerre," which is "I'm the sheep of war."
Okay, mine just ich bin ein Bierbitte. That's all I need.
That's far too useful.
I am a what?
Ich bin einen Bierbitte.
Which is I am a what?
No, it's not. It's can I have a beer, please?
Yeah.
Oh, the only German I know is Ich bin ein Ausländer, which I don't even know what Ausländer means, but it's properly it itself.
Yeah. It basically means alien, foreigner.
Outsider, I think.
Outsider, yeah.
Now I remember. I am an outsider. So
listen to the victim abused by the system, the basis of racist. You know that we can face this. Can't happen here.
Is a bassist,
take a look around.
Right? My mate is a bassist, right? And for years he thought that lyric was "the bassist is racist," and he was quite upset rather than "the bassist is racist."
It would be great if they were just. If Pop Will Eat itself were just saying that their bass player was a racist, and it's doubting him on stage, going, "He's a fucking racist," you know. You know that we must face this. Can't happen here. Take a look around the cities and anyway. I'm going to listen to Dos Dedos Mi Amigos when we finish recording. That's a brilliant record.
It is a brilliant record. Fucking quoting Pop Will Eat itself. Jesus wept.
That dates us, doesn't it?
Anyway, the cat says he'll do it rather than letting him borrow his body. So, Rimmer in Lister's body is having a whale of a time on Starbug. He's driving like a loon and eating donuts. And
he's got an entire chest full of donuts.
Yes. Lister comes on screen and tells him to turn round. Then this is the part that you didn't like, Colin, where Rimmer threatens to destroy the body. But he is clearly bluffing.
Oh, I don't know if he was.
It even says in the script he's bluffing.
It's in the script.
Fair enough.
So we're chasing shoes and Starbuck crashes.
That chase is fucking brilliant. It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a really good bit of prop and model work, and they built an entire planet scenery sort of thing for Blue Midget and Starbug to fly through. Did you notice earlier on that they referred to Blue Midget as White Midget?
No,
I didn't, but I only know because of the quarantine episode that they were talking about it. But
White Midget was what Starbug was originally going to be called until they designed it and went, "Ah, that looks like a bug," and changed its name.
Right.
But yeah, so that chase sequence it just looks absolutely fantastic. And they completely replaced it in the remastered versions with a really shit-looking CGI chase scene.
Right.
Which just looks absolutely fucking awful.
Wow.
It's worth watching. If you have a look on YouTube for a comparison between the two, you can watch them sort of side by side. And the CGI one is so... It may have been good at the time in 1998, but it just looks like a PlayStation 1 game, basically. And it
were the remasters done around about season 8 then?
Must have been, yeah, because it was 98.
Do you know what? What really annoys me is my notes aren't particularly subtle most of the time. My notes for this whole scene was models and a love heart. And the fact that they replaced the only thing that I drew a fucking love heart to in this entire fucking episode is dog shit.
Yes.
I normally draw a lot more than one love heart.
I don't think this episode deserves more than one love heart.
No.
Doesn't even deserve a refresher.
Right. Oh, I do like a refresher.
Actually, I like refreshers more than love hearts. I don't know what I'm talking about there. Even though they're essentially the same thing.
Let's go with Parma Violets. They're rank.
They can fuck right off. They're like the
fuck
quiche
Parma
of
Violets.
They're like the quiche of sweets.
No, because quiche is great. Obviously, we record this in blocks. So for people who don't know, when we have a guest host, we record 2 episodes on the bob in an evening. And so I watched both of these episodes in close proximity to do the 2 recordings. And fuck me, the difference in laughs between Polymorph and between this episode, Bodyswap, was just... I didn't laugh out loud once during this. Polymorph, my partner thought I was fucking dying. He came down and said, "What's wrong?" Because I was laughing so hard.
Obviously, knowing that when we go to record these, it's sometime in advance that we make the plans for it. And I'll often, what I'll do is if for a night we're not doing much, there's nothing much on the TV. I don't really want. Sometimes you get to a point. I don't know if you get to this point where you're like, I don't want to watch anything new. I just want to put something on. It's simple and easy that I can rewatch and it'll be fine. Stick some Red Dwarf or IT Crowd or something like that on.
Yeah.
And I often think that for here. So when I know that I've got episodes coming up in maybe a month's time, I'll stick those 2 episodes on. And I've done that 3 times for this one. I did it like 6 weeks ago. Then we were watching some recently, and every time I put Bodyswap on, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this one.
Yeah,
you know, it was literally like almost like a chore, and it doesn't normally feel like that. As I say, some of it I actually enjoy. I do enjoy that final scene, but it's still like putting it on. I remember the first time I put it on as well. I was like, I don't remember too much about this one either. You know, it's like there's no memorable kind of like, oh, that happened. You know, I mean, apart from the gag which you were saying, Colin, it's not, the first part of the story. You know, the first part of the story is the thing I remember most, and I remember Cat, which I don't think Cat looks the best either in this one, personally.
He's got his hair down, which is very unusual.
That was weird.
It looks like when I stay at my nan's house and like she gets up early in the morning and she's got her hair down, which is really weird because my nan's always got her hair tied up. I always forget that my nan's got long hair because it's always tight, like pinned up so tight. And it was like that.
Yeah.
I mean, my nan doesn't look that much like the cat, but that reminded me a bit of my nan.
Maybe that's just more credence to the fact it's in an alternative reality.
I think this whole episode, right, is
can fuck
fine. Well, no, it's fine.
It's not horrific.
We have been watching an exceptional television program for nearly 18 episodes in a row, and we have sat there and gushed on every single episode. Yeah. And let's think about an American show, which would have 22 episodes, will be a lot more than one dud in a 22 episode run. And knowing what's coming up next, I think this is going to be the only dud. Red Dwarf is an exceptional program. Yeah. And it's okay that they've got an episode that, whilst not awful, isn't great.
Yeah. So I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are very good at putting into a sentence what I've said in a fucking paragraph, Colin.
Yeah.
Let's get it done. Lister, Crichton, and the cat come on board Starbug and find Rimmer in Lister's body, and he's lost an arm and his watch.
I did like that.
Good gag.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he hasn't, and he flicks the V's, and lol.
Thanks, good night.
Yeah. So, Lister wakes up with a bandaged head. Crichton feels very, very guilty and serves him grated carrots and inner lettuce.
It's like vegetarian Yuk Chung, basically.
I mean, Yuk Sung's brilliant.
Yeah,
I don't want to be
but that's the
vegetarian
shittest
anymore.
version of it.
Yeah. If that's what vegetarian yuck sung is, bollocks.
Yeah.
Rimmer, question mark, walks in, and it's the cat as a hologram.
Yeah.
And Rimmer comes in the cat's body and gorges on a gigantic ice cream sundae. Can we do the next episode now, please?
Well, we can, but I'm not on it.
The only thing I'll say about the gorging is that, again, it was a bit like they fall flat. Both of them fall flat. The gravy, the mashed potato, and then this one.
I mean, the cat's hair being down makes sense here because Rimmer isn't looking after his body. But it didn't make sense when the cat was the cat because the cat's very fastidious. Any final thoughts from either of you other than, oh, that was a bit disappointing?
Just the only thing that we didn't reference is the Hitchcock stuff. He mentions Hitchcock and as his body frame as well, which feels a bit, because it was in relation to the frog scene as around that area where this is about Hitchcock's body shape. And I was like, did he need to mention that? I'm not quite sure if they need to mention that.
Well, Hitchcock's silhouette is famous, isn't it? And he's a big lad.
Yeah.
So it's certainly an iconic image. It's just whether or not it's mean to point out that iconic image is of a fella who's a bit chub.
For me, it wasn't so much that. It was the fact that it's been labelled twice because you've got the frog analogy anyway. And the frog analogy, I think, is better.
Yeah.
As an idea.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think you needed to re-emphasize it. I thought, but anyway, that's the only thing I think I would want to say.
I think that might be to do with the fact that this clearly needed padding.
Yeah.
Maybe they wouldn't have had that joke in if they didn't need some padding.
I just wish they'd have padded out the first bit and just had the entire episode being the scutters have messed up all the wiring. Add on to that could have been a brilliant episode. But overall, it wasn't. But that's fine. There's loads of other ones that are brilliant. Just skip this one, really.
I wonder if we've actually come upon the worst episode of Red Dwarf. And my memory of Series 3 was always very, very positive.
Yeah.
Forgetting that this was a weak episode. Whereas my memory of 7 and 8 is that they were below the quality of the others. But I just wonder whether they're below the quality of the others but don't have a stinker like this, or there is going to be a stinker in Series 7 or 8 when we get there.
It's going to be fun finding out.
It is going to be fun finding out. Personally, I like 8. So for me, I don't think I'll find a bad episode in 8 because I actually really like them all. 7 is the question mark, I think. 7's a big question. Some of it's funnier than thing, and also some of it's funnier than people make out. But then you've got the added thing of which version of 7 do you watch? That's the big issue, because there's extended versions and all kinds, and there's no laughter tracks on some, laughter tracks on others. So I think 7's going to be just it's going to be a mess, basically.
You know what I'm going to do with that? I'm going to watch the one that's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on. Is it on Netflix?
All the Beeb episodes are on Netflix.
Yeah, up to Series 8.
Right, okay. Oh, no, the Netflix ones are the long ones without laughter tracks, because I had to go onto UK Gold to watch them because I couldn't do it. I couldn't get through them.
So there's no laughter at all on them?
No laughter tracks on them.
Nope. Interesting.
Because I struggled to get through them. I remember now, because I went through up to 10, up to Back to Earth, because that wasn't in there, and I had to go to the UK TV 7 because I couldn't physically watch.
I was just going to say, I think we should say hello to Chaddy12 on Reddit, because on the Red Dwarf subreddit, Chaddy12 mentioned us in a post about Red Dwarf podcasts that I saw the other day that was months ago when we're recording this, so it'll be even more months ago when this episode goes out, because they were saying, I've been listening to Shipwrecked Comatose, but they've only done the first series so far. So we've done more than that now. Hope you're still listening. Hello.
Thanks, Chaddy12.
Yeah.
What's this Reddit like?
It's the Ute on their internet thing.
Isn't it like Pro Boards on hard mode?
Pretty much.
Are you our deep dive lurker? Is that what you're going to do? Just keep an eye on it for us?
Well, they'll know it's me because I said we're recording season 3 this week in a response to it.
Right, okay.
So that's all we've got time for, really, when it comes to Bodyswap. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't up to our standard. Sorry we've been a bit bitchy. Kurt, where can we find you on there interweb?
On that subreddit, no, you don't. On Twitter, at rmuldrake, RMULDRAKE. You can find me on the Xcast, that's the X_cast, which is an X-File podcast. And I'm just finishing up the Millennium podcast, which is a spin-off to the X-Files. And you can find that at the Times Now pod. Finally, we should be doing some Star Trek Picard work on the Make It So podcast. You can find that at Jean-Luc Podard. And anywhere else I feel like whoring myself out to.
You and me both. Colin, where can we find you on that there interweb?
Right, so I've got 2 podcasts on the We Made This network. I've got We Dig Music, which is me and my friends Ian and Tracy. Each month we find a different year and choose our favourite songs from that year and then vote on them in secret and then find out what the best one is. And it's normally one of mine because I am the best. And then we've got Free With This month's issue, which is me and Ian plus a guest, which you guys are both going to be on at some point soon, which should be a lot of fun. And basically we listen to an old free CD from Kerrang, Metal Hammer, Q, Enemy, that kind of thing, and discuss the horrors and delights within, and normally say that Oasis are bellends. And you can find both of those on the We Made This network by searching for them by name in the podcast app, because you found this is a podcast. You can find podcasts, do it that way. Or go on wedigpodcast.com where they're all like linked and ting. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's Mogwai Fear Satan, and just do searching. It's 2021. You can do that.
He's not wrong. But anyway, If you're looking for me, it's at Mark Adams HC on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to listen to me chat on other inane podcasts, I've got 2 that are inane and 1 that's kind of grown up. First up is Right in the Childhood at RITC Pod on Twitter. That is my podcast with my mate Fraser about kids' telly, where there's like 15 or 18 years age difference between us, and we show each other our favourite kids' telly and see whether it's still good or whether it's just right in the childhood. I've also got Super Tack Film Club at Tack Club on Twitter and Instagram, and that is a B-movie podcast, really. Me and my mates Fletch and Malachi watch something dumb like Critters or Mac and Me or Slugs or Highlander or lots of wonderful 80s tat, and then we have a jolly good laugh chatting about it. And then my sensible grown-up one is Life's Milestones at Life's Milestones on Twitter, and that's where I have a different guest each time and I interview them about their life's milestones, which is birth, marriage and funerals. Thank you very much for listening to Shipwrecked Comatose, and until next time,
Glad that's over.
Elsewhere on We Made This. The time is now. A Millennium podcast.
But no, I mean, I will say that Rise of the Machines also kind of like argues against
Terminator 2, of course.
Back to where it was.
Like Rise of the Machines, like then goes, maybe they're both right, and shrugs its shoulders. It's like, maybe you can prevent Judgment Day, but only for a little while. And it's like, that's not an argument. Pick a side. Pick a lane. You can either change the past or you can't. None of this wishy-washy. You can change it sometimes, but you can't really change it. So it all balances out. Yeah, no, pick a damn side.
Don't say the C word.
On the back of my right arm, I have a tattoo of Phil Collins. It's the front cover of No Jacket Required.
This was the one that I expected you to pick, I'll be honest with you. Because it is my favourite of your tattoos.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tattoo I got as a joke. A lot of my tattoos that I've got are a lot of everything that I do is because it's a joke or if I think something's funny.
We Buy Records.
Eric Clapton and Van Morrison have released an anti-lockdown song. How do you think about this? Where does this sit on the shitometer?
I think it redefines the shitometer.
Right.
So I think it's raising money for musicians who are affected by the lockdown and the lack of gigs, etc., which is a good thing.
Yep.
But then you see Van Morrison and Eric Clapton, a bad thing. So,
right.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, I love Van Morrison's music. I don't particularly like Eric Clapton's music. I quite like the 60s stuff. But they're a couple of whinging old men, aren't they? Old man babies complaining that they can't go and lick whoever they want.
Ooh.
I know, but that's what they're singing about. I think I haven't checked that. I assume that the lyrics are about.
You can take it as read that I haven't heard it.
It's not likely to have a banging donk on it, is it?
It's unlikely to have a banging donk.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This podcast network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at We Made This Pod.